Caleb Williams is at the center of the college football world, Perloff.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
I haven't been this excited about a return. I mean, he's got a great chance to do a back-to-back Heisman.
Wild, and they kick off their season against San Jose State, right, on Saturday. Okay, so we got a lot going on. Caleb Williams was talking to a friend of ours, Pete Thamel, used to work with him at Sports Illustrated, and we was talking about whether or not he's going to declare for the NFL draft. Now, listen, guys have to say something, right? They can't exactly go into their what could be the last season in college football, Perloff, and be like, "Oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
like, hold my beer. I'm gone already to the NFL." Like, that's not going to look great when you're about to start, a college football season.
Yeah, you play the game.
Of course, you got to play the game. But you think there could be some truth to him really thinking about whether this is his last college season?
Wait, first read the quote, and I'll tell you why after you read it. Why I think that he probably will come out. There's, I'd say, 98% chance. But I think he wants to leave that 2% for a very specific reason.
Okay, he said that's going to be for sure an in-the-moment decision at the end of the year about whether or not to declare for the draft. It's my third year, and the dream and goal was to go 3 and out. Being around these guys and in college and enjoying it, we'll have to see at the end of the year. He said right there, 3 and out.
He said my dream was to be 3 and out.
Right.
But he's saying something has changed. Now my dream, I don't know. Maybe I will change my mind. Now, listen, it's probably not going to happen. He's probably going to go pro. But I think he is saying, hey, I can get paid a lot of money to stay at USC for one more year in L.A. USC is, even with the Rams winning a Super Bowl and the Chargers being there, USC is the team in that very glamorous town.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons for him to love that. Think about the money. Guys have made $8-9 million a year for NIL, or actually $8-9 million total. Those deals are so hard to parse.
Yes.
Who knows what they really are? I think he'd get $20 million. If he has another great season, he could get huge money for staying. But that's not why. I think he wants to take control of the draft process. Say Arizona gets the number 1 pick, and he has a bad vibe about that franchise, which a lot of people have had through the years. He can say, you know what? He can make it very clear to everybody, hey, I might go back. I mean, obviously, come draft night, he'll have to declare. So this is
essentially pulling an Eli Manning, or a Peyton Manning is actually more like a Peyton, who decided to go back to Tennessee because he wasn't sold on the New York Jets, or that Bill Parcells wouldn't guarantee that they take him number 1, whatever story you believe from back in the 90s.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned that pre-show. I've heard that story. Yeah. I don't know any of the details because I get so caught up in Eli saying he won't go to the Chargers.
Well, in Eli, but instead of going back to school, because Eli wasn't going to go back to Ole Miss, he pulled the power play of not going to the Chargers and instead forcing his way to the Giants. And if you want to go back through YouTube and watch some very awkward conversations, you thought the owner of the Commanders shaking Joe Buck's hand was awkward the other night. Eli Manning at his own draft answering questions is cringe.
Oh, yeah, that was totally crazy. What about also John Elway went as far to play baseball? Now,
Jim Kelly didn't want to play for the Bills. I mean, there's a lot. This happens in history, but you do have to be very special talent.
Right, but no, it's easier now. It's easier now with NIL. You could stay in football and make tons and tons of money. So you're basically, I understand you want to start the clock on your next contract. Obviously, there's a lot of financial incentive for Caleb Williams to go pro. But he has been very focused on his NFL career forever. His dad, it's one of those families where he's been wanting to be the number 1 overall pick since he was 14 years old. He knows what he's doing. I think it's a very professionally oriented family. And I'm just saying hypothetically, if Arizona's there number 1, he might see this in February and say, this is not the situation I want.
Okay. I can understand not being in love with the idea of going to Arizona because you're not sure if you can win there right now. Okay. But the Arizona Cardinals are like, in some ways, kind of the perfect place to go.
Right.
Because they gave Kyler Murray all this money after the 3rd year, and he didn't even earn it, which means you can go there. I mean, I know Kyler Murray went Offensive Player of the Year. You can go there, have a good rookie season, and then be like, okay, and they'll hand you $100 million. That's the sucker in the room. Like, that's the person I want at the poker table. That's the guy I want to be playing for.
But I don't think Caleb Williams' goals are that at all. I think Caleb Williams is looking, I want to be Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he wants to be some guy who cashes in. I mean, Kyler Murray's career has been a disaster in the NFL. I think Caleb Williams is looking at that. I want no part of it.
Well, that's also maybe Kyler's own fault.
Yeah, it's totally
if he's not studying the playbook, that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, but I think it's both parties here. I mean, they put a clause in about video games. What do you think other franchises are going to let that out or are even going to do that? No, of course not. The Cardinals have been a messy team for many years. Yeah. In fact, so messy they can't even get the freaking turf right for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know. There's a personal vendetta here. It always comes back to
I mean, Sandra, you in Arizona, you know what I'm talking about. Like, for years.
Sandra loved it in Arizona.
But the Bidwells, like, they're hot and cold. No one is really quite sure about that team.
It's so weird because Bill Bidwell was like, he was the Dan Snyder, the Mike Brown, just terrible, wouldn't pay any money. They were just a joke of a franchise. And then Mike took over. And when Michael Bidwell took over, they built a new stadium in Glendale.
Yeah.
Edgerrin James went there. Kurt Warner started winning. They went to the Super Bowl. Larry Fitzgerald became a legend. Anquan Bolden. That team actually turned into something real. And now it feels like they're falling back. And like they're becoming, Steve Keim, it was kind of like a nonsense thing. And the coaches, they drafted Josh Rosen, and after a year, they get rid of him and go right back to Kyler Murray. Yeah. It's just been one misstep after another out there.
Okay, I think the real question it comes down to is, should Caleb Williams try to manipulate where he's going to go? Yeah. Should he try to handpick where he wants to land? Well, but here's the thing about that. That could backfire on you, because I could have said the same thing about Joe Burrow. I mean, I could have said the Cincinnati Bengals, that's not exactly a picnic. I could have gone through all the things that had been wrong with the Bengals and some of their foibles. But Joe Burrow gets there, and they change the entire perception and the whole culture of the franchise. I mean, Carson Palmer could have said to Joe Burrow, and I think did warn Joe Burrow about not going to the Bengals. Trevor Lawrence, everyone probably thought Lawrence and Urban Meyer that this was going to be awesome together, right? And it turns out to be a disaster. And now you have Doug Peterson there, and it's better. My point is, you can try to manipulate where you're going to go, but you're never sure you're going to get it right. Like, you could go to Arizona next year. I don't know if Jonathan Gannon's going to be a great coach. Probably not, but get rid of him. You can change your fortunes very quickly. So good luck trying to manipulate where you're going to go. You might end up more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that. I think that everyone knows there's certain franchises you want to go to, and I think you increase your odds. And also, I think Tom Brady once famously said, if the Cardinals had drafted me, I'd be out of the NFL by now. He said that like 5 years. He's like, listen, we all know that there's certain franchises where it's just not going to work. I'm not positive the Cardinals are that franchise.
We're not even sure they're actually going to get the number one pick.
But I do think if you're Caleb Williams, who's one of the most surefire, I think Trevor Lawrence was in the same category. But if you're that surefire number one overall pick, then you should carefully consider the situation. Now, Joe Burrow is a little different because he's from Ohio, and I think there was a lot going on.
That's true. He couldn't have really turned his back on the Bengals.
I thought that
he was getting warned by Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point. It is a great point. Like, nobody would have predicted the Bengals. Of course, the Bengals did have, I think, 6 double-digit win seasons with Andy Dalton at quarterback. No big deal.
Yeah,
they were not. They certainly weren't the Cardinals by then. And also now the Bengals are like one of the most well-paying outfits out there. Like, they're going into free agency. Something happened where they sort of changed.
Still no contract for Burrow yet, and our bet hangs in the balance.
Yeah.
Who eats the Skyline chili with no hands? I totally
forgot about that.
I haven't.
But they're certainly not cheap anymore.
You read it every day.
That's how they've gotten really good, because they started to spend money. So I do think, though, there are certain sort of train wreck teams. There just are.
But you can change your fortunes pretty quickly. The Bills were a train wreck team when it came to quarterbacks, and now they're not because they hit on one guy.
Feels like we're seeing the same teams in the top 5 a lot.
You're right about that.
I mean, we always have. You're right. Forget the Bills. The Lions all of a sudden are the high, but they still haven't made the playoffs. You're right. You do change it. I don't know. I'm looking at some of the teams. Are there any of these teams that you would avoid? These are the teams at the bottom of the Super Bowl odds.
Okay.
So the worst odds are tied the Cardinals and the Texans. Texans have their quarterback, so probably won't be that. But would you be nervous about going to the Cardinals?
No, you want to know why? Because if they somehow move on from Kyler Murray, and I am actually going to the Cardinals with the number 1 overall pick, I'm basically getting $40 million, and I feel pretty good about that. And that's more than I'm going to get with any kind of NIL and staying another year at USC. Even though USC is prestigious and a blue blood college football program, I'm never hitting that kind of money. And also, I'm not saying that Caleb Williams would be thinking about this, because if you're going to the pros, it's going to be difficult no matter what, steep learning curve. But like last year, the Pac-12, I know there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah.
But am I sticking around for the first year of the Big Ten? Probably not.
Sounds awesome. But,
I don't think so.
If you go to Arizona, I mean, listen, you really want to have a great career, right? That's like your focus. You want to be a Hall of Famer. no doubt Caleb Williams is thinking like that. Who are you throwing to in Arizona? You're not throwing to DeAndre Hopkins. I'll tell you that. He's gone. He's in Tennessee for some bizarre reason.
Is Larry Fitzgerald still around? Can we bring Larry back? He's on Amazon.
Your coach is a weirdo. Maybe he will be good, but your cupboard could not be more bare in Arizona. I think he's going to pull an Eli Manning.
You tell me Hollywood Brown and Rondell Moore don't do it for you?
I love Rondell Moore coming out of college, but no, that has not worked. And Hollywood Brown, I mean, how many games you get out of him? Right now they're in a tough spot because they also have Kyler Murray. We're forgetting that they have a highly paid number 1 pick there.
Yeah, I just think that if they get the number 1 pick, Kyler Murray's going to get traded out of town. But yes,
then it's the Colts who already have a quarterback. The Bucks. Now that is a situation I want to go to because you're going to get a new coach,
probably,
and it's warm weather, and you have a lot of good players around. Titans. So there are a lot of better teams. Like if I could offer you the Bucks, Titans, Rams, compared to Arizona, wouldn't you do something to manipulate yourself down to one of those other teams?
Well, definitely. I mean, Rams for sure, especially because I'd want to play with Sean McVay.
Yeah, I mean if say the Rams are terrible. And they have the number 3 pick. I'm threatening NIL all day. If I'm Caleb Williams.
Yeah, right.
But no, you're right. The Joe Burrow did give me pause. You're right. Because that didn't make any sense at the time, and it worked out great. But I do think that Caleb Williams seems like a very professional-minded guy. I think the Cardinals are a train wreck right now.